Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us, wherever you're joining us. If you're watching us on TV here in Santa Barbara, California, we welcome you at TVSB. And so many of you join us from around the world at goodlifetelevision.org and the YouTube channel and all these different social media platforms. And we welcome all of you. And many of you have found us at the podcast, which is Good Life Conversations. So you can search any podcast platform, Good Life Conversations, where you can listen to all the interviews. They're posted, I think, daily. There's new posts. And on the YouTube channel, you can subscribe to Good Life Television SB is the channel, I believe. I think that's right. Good Life Television SB. And subscribe there so you can get notified when there's new videos. There's like 500 videos on there already, and we've just started that in the last year or so. And it's been fantastic to see the growth. And so we hope you'll join us there. Good Life Television is presented by Bunnin Chevrolet. We're so grateful for our friends at Bunnin, Leo and company. So thank you. I'm so excited about my guest today. She's a good friend. She's the co-founder of Olive Crest Hope Refuge here in Santa Barbara, California, where we're sitting, and we'll talk about that. Sally Cook is with me.
Good
Hi, Sally.
morning. Hello.
Great to see you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so Sally is, as I mentioned, she's had a wonderful career. She's been in media. She's done various things. Most recently, her and her husband Chuck are co-founders of Olive Crest Hope Refuge, which is a residential program for victims of trafficking. And so that's been their journey for the last several years, and it was not an easy one. Do you reflect on that sometimes and just go, how do we make it?
Oh yeah, always, always. It's actually healthy to reflect and go, wow, yeah, God can literally bring you through anything.
Yeah. That's a powerful thing when you've
Yes.
been down that road and then he came through in such a way that you got there. I mean, there must have been many times when you were on that journey where you may have wondered, like, are we actually going to get there?
Oh my gosh. Dean, countless times of thinking, should we just turn around? Should we just stop, give up?
Yeah.
The good thing is, between Chuck and I, when we had our giving up moments, the other person was feeling really
They were not
ready to
correlated.
go. No, we got it.
Yeah.
Really full of faith and hope, which I think keeps you going on the journey.
Yeah.
And it's the power of community. I really believe
Two
that.
are better than one.
Yeah.
When
Seriously.
one falls down.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But there were days, I think, towards the end when it was when we were in our darkest time, the most difficult time. There were definitely days where I thought, how am I going to carry on? I don't want to carry on.
Yeah.
And how does God enable us to persevere? I don't know. I can honestly look back, and when people say so, you know, particularly those who were maybe more in the inner circle and saw the sort of inner struggle that particularly I was going through, how did you just keep showing up and leading everybody and keeping everyone going? And grace of God,
Yeah.
Dean.
Yeah.
Seriously, you feel a bit like an imposter, I think, sometimes in those moments.
Right. Well, I think leaders, I mean, that's why leadership can be so hard. It's not, leadership is not about standing up in front, you know, but I think it's mostly about showing up when the chips are down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Showing up is just a big part of the deal.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes you're pretending to be more happy than you actually are, but showing up is a big part of it.
Well, and I realized I don't think it, you know, the imposter thing tells you you're pretending. It's not really who you are. There's something not true and authentic about the way you're being, which actually isn't what I was feeling, really isn't true. And I think it's the same for a lot of leaders. Actually, in these moments, I was making the choice. That this moment matters. And as much as I'm struggling and I'm dealing with all of the pressure that we were facing and everything that it was bringing up in me, I can still show up and God can still be strong, you know, and it's actually okay to be weak.
Yeah.
It's actually a really huge lesson I've learned. Wow, His grace really is sufficient in my weakness. And somehow I think when we say God's grace is sufficient, His strength is made perfect, we think we're just going to start to feel the strength and, you know.
No, you're still weak.
You're still weak. But He just shows up anyway.
It's so good. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Amazing truth there. Olive Crest Hope Refuge, Olive Crest, a wonderful organization, large organization, based out of Southern California, and they've partnered on this deal, and it's a fantastic thing that they have going. You may not know, for in terms of residential programs, beds for this in this particular arena, there's not a lot of them. And this has been eye-opening for me to discover that and I kind of know why now. It's probably a combination of the regulatory environment is very tough, which probably for good reason at some level, but it's very difficult. Like this is very difficult in terms of a regulatory climate. But I think the biggest reason is because there's forces spiritually working against stuff like this.
Yeah.
You know, talk about headwinds.
Yeah.
You want to, you know, would you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I think trafficking as a whole, trafficking of minors, I mean, this is a big business here in America.
Yeah.
And it's dark. There's nothing light about it. I mean, even when I just think about the work we were doing in Africa, for example. You know, again, it's a hard area. There's darkness around poverty, but Africa's beautiful. Holding African babies is beautiful, you know. Right. Whereas in trafficking, it's tough because not even the girls think that they're victims. So they don't self-identify. So when you're coming in to help and address, give them time out, intervene, you're a bad guy because you're separating them from their pimp. So there's a journey, it's a huge journey. But yes, residential's tough because it's 24/7. They're not going home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, and it's heavily regulated. So, and I think, you know what, there's people who are wired for that environment, particularly wired to do well and thrive amongst that kind of stressful, constant crisis kind of environment. And we have an incredible team. They are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, startup in itself is hard.
Yeah, any kind of startup.
Yeah, so I think we had this perfect storm. We had a perfect storm. I don't want to talk people out of it because we desperately need more residential facilities. Right. I mean, what are we saying? 325,000 a year are getting caught up in trafficking, right, minors. And in 2014, the study was 511 beds with a particular program to serve this population. So we have a tsunami. And so where are these kids ending up? Well, they're ending up in our homeless population, psych wards, juvenile hall. So, I mean, really, we have a major issue on our hands that we need to be addressing. So, yeah.
So if you're thinking about doing a residential facility, we're not discouraging you.
No.
Do it. If God's telling you to do it, do it. You can do it. Look at she did it. They did it. I applaud what you guys have done. I'm such a fan, and grateful for the mountain that you climbed by the grace of God to get there. So Sally has written a book that is wonderful. Here it is. It'll be up on your screen. What Are You Waiting For, God? Discover the Beauty of Hiddenness. And Sally Cook is the author, of course. And so it's fantastic. What a great question. And I think, man, I'm dealing with that question right now. Several areas. What's somebody going to find when they pick this up?
I think they're going to find peace for themselves and find the Father, the Father's heart for them in every season of life. A lot of this came for me from the revelation around, it was a particular season of my life when I felt particularly ready, but I felt like I was in like 10% of my potential in my life. And God had done this incredible journey in my life. He'd brought me out into Hollywood, out into the media. We'd been, it would have been a long journey getting there. And I felt so ready. And yet I felt like I was in this holding pattern. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And there's a lot of stuff coming up in me. What is this? Have I done something wrong? What's in the way? What's the obstacle? Prayer more, fast more, or, this striving mentality that we get into. And it was one morning in prayer time when I was just crying out to God, really. I was just having a deep time with him. And I just heard the Spirit say, Sally, is it enough to know that actually I didn't even move out into public ministry until I was 30 years old? Right. And it was kind of like this dawning moment of, what? And then proceeded this period of my life of discovery of, what does that tell us about the Father's priorities? If the Son of God, if Christ
Right.
was walking the earth at 28 years old, okay, imagine, Dean,
Right.
what was Jesus doing at 28 years old? I mean, what was he doing?
Making tables, I think. Right?
Was living life.
Yeah.
Getting, what was he doing? I just think it's a question. I mean, we see a certain amount that we can deduct from the Bible. It doesn't give us a nice, but that's the whole point. It's this relational discovery, I think, that we're in, that the Father's priorities are very different to ours. And, Christ it says he was growing in favor with God and man. He was learning he was in the relational identity growth with his Father, therefore with himself, and therefore with others. And it's just amazing. It was just a very freeing time for me to realize, wow, the Father's priorities for me in this season are different to mine.
Yeah.
And it's not about whether those dreams will or won't come about. It's really not about that. It's what's happening in me in my relationship with him that is naturally going to flow out into the world. And we live in a world where we want it now. Particularly, a lot of my background's in charismatic Christianity, and it's all about now and faithing it in, and seeing the kingdom come, and I've got a bit of an A-type personality, and I want to see results, and I want to see things move. And does God want the kingdom to come? Absolutely. But it's first and foremost in our hearts. He's got this. His heart is for us to be fully relationally connected to our Father, and identity to be so secure in that everything rolls out of that. And so that book really has just got a lot of chapters on some perspectives, pulling people back to say, hey, this is just not all about you.
Yeah.
And because when I started to look at every single character, Dean, in the Bible, there's not one character that we would all, that we're all looking at in the Bible, we all have our different favorites, that has not had significant seasons of waiting. Another way of looking at it is maybe being hidden. For me, it felt like being hidden. But where they're waiting. And they're waiting for promises to be fulfilled. They're waiting for God to see what God, had said that he was going to do.
Yeah.
For things, promises for their own lives, promises for the Israelites, promises for their prayers being answered. And so, we all go through those seasons.
Joseph.
And Joseph is a prime example of someone actually who actually ended up thriving and was able to make it through to the other side, because you can see that in these times this is where things can come and we can end up taking diverts.
Yeah, right.
I mean, God will work with us wherever we go. The beauty of him. But you can see with the Israelites, there was a whole generation that didn't go into the promised land. Very similar to Joseph, extended time of waiting. A lot of the opposite happening that they thought was going to happen, a lot of disappointment, a lot of discouragement. Yet Joseph seems to hold. Mm-hmm. So what is the difference there? Yet when the Israelites had their opportunity, and God shows them, they literally takes them in, they get to go and see, why didn't they go? And for me, I kind of unravel a little bit of that in the book, but I think it's about hope.
Yeah.
And I think with the mumbling and the groaning, when your heart goes harder and harder and harder, you start to lose hope. And what is faith? It's the substance of things hoped for. So when they actually were facing their promised land, the Israelites, and there they are, they've got this amazing land before them that God has told them is theirs, with all the giants and everything else that's in it, there they are facing it. They didn't have that hope for faith to arise from. They lost it. Mm. And mumbling and groaning and complaining is a key way of getting the heart hardened to hope. Yet with Joseph, we see he was able to remain.
Yeah.
And that's our relationship with him. It's like if that relationship with the Father is not continually what's growing us in our identity, you're gonna, hard times and struggles, we'll try and reason through our own head, and you can't do that. That's not going to leave you with hope. That's going to leave you with discouragement and dismay and despair even. So it doesn't mean those feelings don't arise. It's what we do with them really that matters.
Well, this is a good word for me. I'm receiving this right now, live television. I'm receiving this. That's good. I mean, I always say, somebody says, why didn't God do this or why didn't he do that? There's the famous line, I don't know, he doesn't work for me. Like which is a good one,
yeah.
but I'm like, find myself going, okay, I
Yes.
don't understand.
Yeah.
I've had some real frank conversations where we're all, because he's a big boy. I mean, he can handle, I don't understand. And that's what you're saying here. I mean, it's really about, okay, there's something larger that we don't see. The timing can be just so different, and you don't get it. Now later you might look back and say,
Because you've got the understanding.
now you understand
Yeah.
that season
Yeah.
in LA,
You
right?
don't need faith when you understand.
Right. But it's now, it's
Yeah.
during it that you're kind of like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
there's something, I want to go back to Hope Refuge for a second. So this, working with the poor, this, or the least, or the struggling, or the, it's such a powerful thing for us, I feel like. In fact, this morning, I didn't know anything about Carl Jung until this morning. I was researching him because I'd read this quote from him that he says, hopefully I get it right. He says, modern man does not find God because they're not looking low enough. That struck me this morning.
That's really good.
And so I started reading about him, and he's a very interesting guy. Somebody asked him, do you believe in God? He said, no, I don't have to believe. I know. I don't know where he was. He was, something says he was a pantheist or whatever. I don't even know what that is, but whatever. But the quote caught me because I was like, wow, that's an interesting, sometimes I feel like we're looking for God in all the wrong places. Like we think, and not that he's everywhere, but there's something about when he says, when you did this for the least of these brothers of mine, you did it for me. Jesus himself, so in terms of meeting God, maybe sometimes we're not looking low enough. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I mean, we're so inspired by one of our friends and mentors, Heidi Baker, a dear, dear friend. And that's her. That's all she'll ever say is, I learn from the poor. That's where I get fed, and that's where I learn. That's where I find Jesus. That's where I find God. And until you step out and you're doing, I remember when I first went to Africa, and I've been to Africa, spent a year there before I met Heidi, but when I went with Heidi, it was a whole nother level. But it's true, I found myself in Africa amongst the poor. And yeah, there's something amazing. I have to say the demographic, the girls, we work with minors who've been sex trafficked, so between 12 and 18 years old. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to be around a child who's been forced to be a woman before her time and has been exploited in all the worst ways, and not have your heart broken to the point that actually you really do have to question, what is life all about? What matters? And talking about the rough times, you said, how do you keep going there? I remember when we let go of because we were in the entertainment industry when we got called into this, and I remember when we fully stepped out up here in Santa Barbara to serve this population, and I remember thinking, what are we doing? We're crazy. We're leaving everything behind. We literally left our home, our house, our careers, everything. And here we were in the middle of nowhere in Santa Barbara. Beautiful, but we're actually on a hill, like a remote setting, doing something we know nothing about, just this whole crazy reality of what are we doing? But we knew we were meant to. And I just decided, you know what? I found my peace, and I don't think I'm ever gonna be on my deathbed and regret going after the abolition of modern day slavery. Yeah. I really don't think I will. And I stand to that to this day. I don't regret it. Yeah. Nearly killed me, but I don't regret it because, and I know I never will when I make those decisions to serve the least of these, as you would say, because it's who he is, it's who our God is.
Yeah, for sure. It's an amazing thing that people that need help, when you come alongside to help, they win and you win. Like it's a blessing.
Win-win.
It's amazing, interesting thing. Generosity is just such at the heart of God. And sometimes it's the opposite of Okay, you're waiting for something. Okay, well, you could, serve. If you're, I had a mentor one time tell me, if you're out of money, go give something away. Like it's just an opposite. It's like opposite day in the kingdom of God. It's like, well, no, I wouldn't think of doing that. It's like, go find some clothes. Go find some clothes in your closet and go give them to somebody. It's just a different way of thinking, different perspective. Okay, the prayer breakfast coming up. We're sitting here in Santa Barbara, California on August 31st, coming up at the Hilton beachfront, 7:30 a.m. I think it's a Wednesday maybe morning. But Santa Barbara prayerbreakfast.org is where you can go to find all the information. Sally is going to be the keynote speaker. Kind of the theme that we're working off of, that she's working off of, is Just As I Am, which is such a wonderful thing and a great song, of course, from the made famous at the Billy Graham Crusades. How you doing with all this?
I'm excited and intimidated all at the same time.
I told her it's going to ruin her summer. But
you were right.
Yeah. You wake up, you go to sleep thinking about it, and you wake up thinking about it. It's like my dad sitting over here did sermons on Sunday for 40 years. I know how he feels a little bit now. He's like, you're always thinking about it.
Yes.
But, so what's on your heart for August 31st right now?
Right now, I'm constantly asking, Father, what's on your heart? I honestly am, because there's so many directions. I mean, I do quite a bit of speaking, and there's so many directions, because I know people want to hear the Hope Refuge story. People want to know, what's going on, why are we doing what we're doing, and I can't wait to share that. And I want to share just the amazing miracles that the Father has done all the way through. It's just been crazy, but the struggle too. I think it's really important to share the struggle too. It wouldn't be being real and authentic, and what I've learned about the Father in that space. So that's my heart is that people really leave feeling connected to their Heavenly Father in a deeper way, and that their hearts will be more open to the process that God has them in.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes we can lose sight of we can get very caught up either in the future or with what we think should be happening, or the problem or the struggle or whatever it is, regardless of what they're doing. And it just so happened with Hope Refuge, everything was extremely high stakes. So everything seems extreme, but we're all on this journey of faith.
Yeah.
And I feel like whatever's happening now is not a time filler.
Right.
And God is not rejecting any single part of us. So now matters.
Yeah.
And it matters. I came up with Just As I Am came to me one morning just because it's just been really part of my journey of recognizing, wow, the Father, approaching the Father with truth in my innermost being is all of our journey. How do we really, who am I? And it's not like, I think sometimes, we don't come to the Father, we just have blocks and we've been taught wrong things, or we've perceived something wrong, and then we come to the Father with all these things that we think we should be or do. Got to get all my repentance out, got to do all my confession, got to do all this, got to, all of that is part of the journey, but it's out of this true core innermost place with the Father where I am Sally and He loves me for me. And learning how much He loves me allows me to start loving myself and therefore love others. And so, I don't know, I'm hoping the Father really wants to just release more of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in the process. I've written it a couple of times, as you said, I would. But I'm excited to just share the great and the ugly, and how the Father is amazing through it all. Yeah.
Santa Barbara prayerbreakfast.org. You can get a table or you can get tickets, either way. But I would get them as soon as you can. Last year it was a full house. We're expecting that again. Santa Barbara prayerbreakfast.org. Yeah, it's like when my boys, I think about my boys and girls too. I'm thinking about my boys right now because they're kind of a little younger and in that teenage phase and stuff. But when you're talking, I'm thinking about, okay, how I relate to them. Like, I see them on their best day. I see them with bad hair and bad breath and struggling. And I see them in every weather, every climate, every situation. I see them after we win the big game, and I'm taking them to get a banana split when we lost a heartbreaker. Like, it's both, right?
Yeah.
And as a dad, my love doesn't go up and down for them. My love is as much as it can be.
Yeah.
But you know what I want from them? To tell me the truth. This is an interesting thing. Tell me, like when I ask them, if I can tell, you know, we can all tell with our kids. I can tell when something's going on. So I'll say, hey, what's going on? You all right? And that's my question. You all right? You all right? And I love when they say, well, this, you know, when they tell me, I want to know. Why? Because I love them and I can help. You know, like most situations, I got a text the other day from DJ. The text is just, Dad, we have a problem. So I call him. An hour later, I solved it, right, as a dad, because I'm the dad, right? We can't always, you know, we're not God. But a lot of times I can help, right? I can help with this or that or money or this happens or this morning is got to go to the chiropractor. We take, you know, like, so the father, the dad, I think that's the heart of God to say, tell me. Don't pretend like you're some religious guy.
I actually think about that a lot with my son too. I'm exactly the same. I think we learn a lot about the Father's heart for us when we have our own children, right?
Yes.
We really do.
Yes.
But because God works with truth.
Truth.
He can work with that. So when we
That's
come,
right.
that's why we know His grace is sufficient. And there's something beautiful about the harder stories when we hear when people have got themselves into a really hard situation and then, you know, making really bad choices and the prodigal son story.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome? We all love the prodigal son story. But there's another son in that story too, and it's the son who's in the house who, again, in the same way as the prodigal son, doesn't know his dad.
Yeah.
Yet he's working.
Right.
He's working hard and he's doing his thing. And I feel like as Western Christians, we probably fall more into that category. I think we can find ourselves in both, but we do. We fall into this place where we end up spending less time in the house, more time working, solving. And the way we know the intimacy has become less of the priority is when we see the son come back and the brother's response. Right. He's so offended. He's so angry, Dean. Right. I know that feeling, and that will be part of my story that I would share. I know that feeling. I was highly offended by a father who felt to me had abandoned me when I needed him most. And the offense was so strong. And I didn't even know it was there until this perfect fire of hurt refuge. And this is the thing. This is why I just want to even encourage people who are listening now, and just even you with your situation you're in. You're in a perfect fire for you right now. Your storm that you're in, whatever visual God's giving you about the shaking, it is the perfect one for God to show up for you. And He's not creating this thing so that He can just somehow be God for you. No, this is just life has formed itself around you in this situation, and God is with you in it. Yeah. Totally with you in it. And He wants to teach you how to grow up and overcome, right? To be like Him. Yeah. And handle that. And you can only do that in this relational process with the Father.
So good.
And it's perfect for us. Each one of us is this perfect one. And what's interesting is the father says to the older son, son, don't you know you're always with me? Right. And everything I have is yours? Yeah. He doesn't say, don't you know I'm always with you? And everything I have is yours. And it's seemingly an insignificant phrase. But the more I've pondered that, the more I'm like, that is profound. It's about Him. Yeah. And His nature, His security, what He stands on, who He is. We are always with Him. And of course, out of that, we feel He's always with us because He is. He's in us. He's around us. You know, He's one with us, everything. But it's because we're with Him.
So good.
Takes the focus back to what it should be, this relational. Trust is relationally earned. And it's no different with the Father. He wants to relationally earn it with us. He doesn't need to. But He's put Himself into this relationship. He doesn't have to. Yeah. Yeah. But He's chosen. I want to be in relationship with you, Dean. Yeah. Like you with your son. You're like, son, I don't have to be in relationship with you. You're a big grown-up boy. You can go and do your own life without me if you want.
Right.
But you
would
you want to
want
be
that?
connected,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
You just want to see him grow up and make awesome man choices and be like, yay!
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, you're getting me passionate about subjects
No,
I love. But
it. So it's good. Last year you heard from the prodigal son, and this year the elder brother.
Oh,
So
no.
it's-
dude,
that's perfect, isn't it?
profound.
So we got me out of the way, which is great. Well, we're out of time already, which is amazing. Sally Cook is something special. It's August 31st, 7:30 a.m. Be there. I'll be there. We'll give you a hug.
Can't wait.
Sally will give you a hug. Everybody will give you a hug. It's what we do. It's who we are. Thanks, Sally. And get the book too. It's great. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.